Story 1. The Haunting of Hollowbrook House. In the heart of the quiet, picturesque town of Hollowbrook, nestled deep within the dense woods, stood an abandoned mansion shrouded in mystery. Hollowbrook House, as it was known, had once been a place of opulence and grandeur, but it had long since fallen into decay and disrepair. It was a mansion with a dark history, and the townsfolk spoke of it only in hushed tones. The mansion's history dated back to the early 19th century when it was built by the enigmatic Hollowbrook family. For years, it had been the centerpiece of the town, hosting extravagant parties and lavish gatherings. However, a series of inexplicable tragedies had befallen the family, leading to their untimely demise and the mansion's abandonment. Mara Jacobs, an adventurous journalist with an insatiable curiosity for the supernatural, had heard the tales of Hollowbrook House and its haunting. She saw an opportunity to uncover the truth behind the legends and ventured into the town, determined to unravel the mysteries that shrouded the mansion. Mara arrived in Hollowbrook on a gloomy afternoon, the dense woods surrounding the town casting eerie shadows in the fading light. She rented a small cabin on the outskirts of town, her determination unwavering. As she explored the quaint town, she couldn't help but notice how the townsfolk avoided speaking about Hollowbrook House. When she inquired about it, their faces would grow somber, and they would change the subject, as though fearful of awakening some dormant malevolence. One evening, as Mara ventured deeper into the woods that led to the mansion, the air grew thick with an ominous silence. The path was overgrown, and the trees seemed to lean in closer, as if to keep their secrets hidden. She felt as though unseen eyes watched her every move, and faint whispers seemed to dance on the edges of her consciousness. Mara's determination only grew as she approached Hollowbrook House. The mansion's exterior was a testament to its former grandeur, but now it stood as a decaying relic of the past. The windows were shattered, and ivy clung to the crumbling walls. A heavy sense of foreboding washed over her. She ventured inside, the floorboards creaking beneath her every step. The interior was shrouded in darkness, and her flashlight revealed the ravages of time: faded wallpaper, broken furniture, and dust-covered chandeliers. But there was something more, a palpable sense of unease that hung in the air. As she explored further, strange occurrences began to unfold. Doors slammed shut of their own accord, and eerie whispers echoed through the halls. Mara's investigations revealed hidden passages and secret chambers, each containing cryptic symbols and unsettling relics from the mansion's past. One night, as Mara conducted her research in a dimly lit library, she heard the soft sound of a piano playing in a distant room. The music was hauntingly beautiful, its melody both enchanting and melancholic. Intrigued, she followed the sound, her heart quickening with each note. The music led her to a grand ballroom, its opulent chandeliers casting a spectral glow. There, she saw a figure seated at the grand piano, a woman in a flowing, white gown, her back turned to Mara. The woman's fingers danced across the keys, producing the ethereal music that filled the room. Mara tried to communicate with her, but the woman remained silent, her gaze fixed on the empty dance floor. It was then that Mara noticed something unsettling. The woman's reflection in the grand piano was that of a skeletal figure, a ghastly specter of death. As Mara continued her exploration of Hollowbrook House, she encountered more unexplainable phenomena. Lights flickered and dimmed inexplicably. Shadowy figures moved in the corners of her vision, vanishing when she tried to confront them. The whispers that had haunted her grew more distinct, as if a chorus of unseen voices surrounded her. They spoke of suffering, of torment, and of a malevolent presence that dwelled within the decaying walls of Hollowbrook House. One night, Mara's flashlight flickered and died, leaving her in total darkness. Panic set in as she realized she was not alone. She heard the soft, echoing footsteps once more, as if the very mansion itself had come to life. Mara's desperate flight through the abandoned mansion seemed to stretch on endlessly. The whispers intensified, their voices filling her mind with a cacophony of torment. She felt cold fingers brush against her skin, and the shadows that pursued her seemed to hunger for her very soul. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she burst through the rotting doors of Hollowbrook House, gasping for breath. She knew she had narrowly escaped the malevolent presence that lurked within, but her sanity had been fractured by the horrors she had witnessed. Determined to uncover the truth, Mara returned to Hollowbrook House, armed with her knowledge of journalism and her unwavering resolve. She ventured into the darkest corners of the mansion, determined to lay to rest the tormented spirits that lingered within. As she entered the grand ballroom, she addressed the spectral woman at the piano, acknowledging her suffering and her sadness. Slowly, the woman's form began to fade, and she seemed to find a measure of peace. Mara continued her journey through the mansion, confronting the restless spirits one by one. With empathy and compassion, she helped them find solace, releasing them from their torment. With her mission complete, Mara emerged from Hollowbrook House, her heart heavy with the weight of the past. She knew that the mansion would forever be haunted by its history, but perhaps, with the release of the tormented souls, it could find a measure of redemption. The moon shone brightly over Hollowbrook House, casting a serene light on the decaying structure. Mara knew that the whispers in the walls had finally been silenced, and the spirits of the past could now rest in peace. Story 2. The Haunting of Blackthorne Manor. Nestled on the outskirts of the quiet town of Ravenswood, Blackthorne Manor stood as a sentinel to a bygone era. Its imposing, ivy-covered facade spoke of a time when the wealthy Blackthorne family held sway over the town. But the mansion had long been abandoned, left to decay and become a haven for rumors and legends. The townsfolk whispered about Blackthorne Manor, its dark history, and the tragic fate of the family that had once inhabited its opulent halls. To them, it was a place where the boundary between the living and the dead blurred, where the past refused to remain buried. Sophie Reynolds, an intrepid investigative journalist with a fascination for the supernatural, had heard the tales of Blackthorne Manor and its haunting. She saw an opportunity to uncover the truth behind the legends and ventured into Ravenswood, determined to unravel the mysteries that shrouded the mansion. Sophie arrived in Ravenswood on a misty autumn afternoon, the town's narrow streets lined with ancient oak trees. She rented a small cottage nearby, her curiosity undiminished by the ominous stories that surrounded Blackthorne Manor. As she explored the town, she couldn't help but notice the wary glances of the townsfolk when she mentioned her intention to investigate the mansion. They warned her of the malevolent presence that dwelled within its decaying walls, cautioning her to stay away. But Sophie's determination only grew in the face of their warnings. One evening, as Sophie ventured closer to Blackthorne Manor, a sense of unease washed over her. The mansion loomed in the fading light, its shadowy windows seeming to stare back at her like vacant eyes. The air grew colder, and the trees rustled with a mournful sigh, as though they too held the secrets of the manor. Sophie's investigations inside Blackthorne Manor revealed a place frozen in time. Dust-covered furniture and tattered tapestries told the story of a family that had once lived in opulence but had fallen into despair. Yet there was something more, an eerie presence that seemed to permeate every room. Sophie often heard faint whispers that danced on the edges of her consciousness, as though the very walls held secrets too terrible to speak. One night, as she studied old photographs in the parlor, a chill settled over the room. A soft, mournful melody filled the air, and Sophie turned to see the keys of the grand piano moving of their own accord. She watched in awe as the keys played a haunting tune, as if the piano itself yearned to tell a tale. The inexplicable events within Blackthorne Manor only intensified. Doors slammed shut with a resounding force, and eerie apparitions appeared in the moonlit corridors. Sophie's research led her to discover that the Blackthorne family had been plagued by a series of tragedies, including the mysterious disappearance of their youngest daughter, Isabel. One fateful night, as Sophie delved deeper into the mysteries of the manor, the grand piano played its melancholic melody once more. This time, she sensed a presence, a young girl in a white dress, her eyes filled with sadness. The girl's spectral hand reached out to Sophie, as if seeking solace. Sophie tried to communicate with the ghostly figure, but the girl remained silent, her gaze fixed on an old family portrait. In the painting, Isabel Blackthorne stood beside her family, her expression one of solemn resignation. It was as though the spirit of Isabel sought to convey a message from beyond the grave. As Sophie continued her exploration of Blackthorne Manor, the malevolent presence within grew more powerful. Her nights were filled with restless dreams, and shadows seemed to lurk in every corner. She felt a weight pressing down on her, as though the very mansion sought to consume her soul. One night, as Sophie ventured into the manor's decaying basement, she discovered a hidden chamber adorned with eerie symbols and arcane markings. In the center of the room lay an old, weathered journal, the diary of Isabel Blackthorne. The diary revealed a tale of tragedy and despair, detailing Isabel's growing isolation and her descent into madness. She wrote of a malevolent force that had tormented her, a presence that whispered terrible secrets and sought to claim her soul. Determined to uncover the truth, Sophie delved into Isabel's diary, seeking to understand the dark force that had plagued the Blackthorne family. She realized that Isabel had attempted to communicate with the entity through a series of rituals, desperate to free herself from its grasp. One night, as Sophie conducted a ritual described in the diary, she felt a malevolent presence close and around her. The air grew frigid, and the shadows seemed to coalesce into a sinister figure, a specter of darkness and despair. The entity spoke through Sophie, its voice a chilling whisper that echoed through the manor. It revealed its name, Malachi, and its insatiable hunger for souls. It had lured Isabel into its grasp, and now it sought to claim Sophie as its own. Sophie refused to surrender to the malevolent entity. With a fierce determination, she confronted Malachi, demanding that it release Isabel's spirit and depart from Blackthorne Manor forever. A battle of wills unfolded within the decaying mansion, a clash between the forces of darkness and the strength of Sophie's resolve. The walls seemed to tremble, and the air crackled with an otherworldly energy. With a final, defiant cry, Sophie banished Malachi from the manor, her voice resonating with power. The entity screamed in anguish as it was forced to release Isabel's spirit, and the mansion itself seemed to sigh with relief. With the malevolent presence banished, Sophie emerged from Blackthorne Manor, her heart heavy with the weight of the past. She knew that the mansion would forever bear the scars of its history, but perhaps, with Isabel's spirit finally free, it could find a measure of redemption. As she looked back at the mansion one last time, Sophie saw a faint glimmer of light within its darkened windows. It was as though the manor itself acknowledged her efforts and offered a silent gratitude for the release from its haunted legacy. Story 3. The Shadows of Brook Haven House. In the heart of the remote village of Brook Haven, nestled amidst ancient oaks and sprawling gardens, stood an imposing mansion known simply as Brook Haven House. It was a mansion steeped in history, with whispers of its haunting echoing through the generations. The townsfolk spoke of it only in hushed tones, as if the very mention of its name could summon its malevolent presence. Brook Haven House had once been the residence of the enigmatic Vandermeer family, who were revered for their wealth and power. But over time, the mansion had fallen into disrepair, its once glamorous facade now faded and crumbling. It was a place where secrets festered, and the past refused to be forgotten. Sarah Mitchell, a fearless paranormal investigator with a penchant for the unknown, had heard the tales of Brook Haven House and its haunting. She saw an opportunity to uncover the truth behind the legends and ventured into Brook Haven, determined to unravel the mysteries that shrouded the mansion. Sarah arrived in Brook Haven on a fog-laden evening, the village's cobbled streets exuding an eerie stillness. She checked into a centuries-old inn, its time-worn charm a stark contrast to the tales of horror she had heard. As she explored the village, she couldn't help but notice the unease of the villagers when she inquired about Brook Haven House. They spoke of strange occurrences, shadowy figures, and eerie sounds that emanated from the mansion's direction. It was clear that the mansion held a dark and enduring grip on the village. One night, as Sarah ventured closer to Brook Haven House, an unsettling chill washed over her. The mansion loomed in the moonlight, its silhouette an imposing presence against the night sky. She felt a sense of foreboding, as though unseen eyes watched her every move. Sarah's investigations inside Brook Haven House revealed a place frozen in time. Dust-covered furniture, faded portraits, and forgotten trinkets spoke of a family that had once thrived but had been consumed by tragedy. Yet there was something more, an unsettling atmosphere that seemed to permeate every room. Sarah often heard faint whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls. They spoke of sorrow, betrayal, and an insidious force that refused to release its grip on the mansion. One evening, as she explored the decaying library, Sarah stumbled upon an old journal, a relic of the Van der Meer family. Its pages were filled with the ramblings of a tormented soul, a family member named Eliza who had been driven to madness by an entity she referred to as the Shadow. The inexplicable events within Brook Haven House only intensified. Sarah's nights were filled with restless dreams, and she felt a pervasive sense of being watched. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and ghostly figures appeared in the corners of her vision. One night, as she studied the journal, Sarah heard the mournful strains of a violin playing in a distant room. The music was hauntingly beautiful, yet filled with a deep sense of sorrow. She followed the ethereal melody through the mansion's labyrinthine halls, her heart pounding with anticipation. The music led her to an ornate parlor, where a spectral figure stood at the grand piano. It was a woman in a tattered, white gown, her fingers gliding gracefully over the keys. She turned to Sarah, her eyes hollow and vacant, and Sarah realized that the woman was playing the piano without touching it. As Sarah continued her exploration of Brook Haven House, she encountered more unexplainable phenomena. Lights flickered and dimmed inexplicably. Furniture moved of its own accord, and eerie apparitions appeared in the moonlit corridors. The whispers that had haunted her grew more distinct, as if a chorus of unseen voices surrounded her. They spoke of torment, of a malevolent force that fed on the suffering of the Van der Meer family, and sought to ensnare all who entered the mansion. One night, as Sarah delved deeper into the mansion's history, she uncovered a dark secret, a pact made by the Van der Meer family with a sinister entity known as the Shadow. It was a pact that had cursed the family for generations, binding their souls to the malevolent force. Determined to confront the malevolent entity and free the mansion from its grip, Sarah ventured into the heart of Brook Haven House. She carried with her the knowledge of the curse and the strength of her conviction. One night, as she stood in a dimly lit chamber, Sarah called out to the Shadow, demanding that it reveal itself. The air grew heavy, and the shadow seemed to coalesce into a sinister figure, a specter of darkness and despair. The shadow spoke through Sarah, its voice a chilling whisper that echoed through the mansion. It revealed its insatiable hunger for souls and its delight in tormenting the living. But Sarah refused to yield, her resolve unshaken. A battle of wills unfolded within Brook Haven House, a clash between the malevolent force of the shadow and the strength of Sarah's determination. The walls seemed to tremble, and the very foundation of the mansion quaked. With a final, defiant cry, Sarah banished the shadow from the mansion, her voice resonating with power. The entity screamed in anguish as it was forced to release its hold on the Vandermeer family and the mansion itself. With the malevolent force banished, Sarah emerged from Brook Haven House, her heart heavy with the weight of the past. She knew that the mansion would forever bear the scars of its history, but perhaps, with the release of the tormented souls and the curse broken, it could find a measure of redemption. As she looked back at Brook Haven House one last time, Sarah saw a faint glimmer of light within its darkened windows. It was as though the mansion itself acknowledged her efforts and offered a silent gratitude for the release from its haunted legacy. For more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. See you next time.